Assalamu alaikum everybody. Welcome to the course of Computer Organization and Architecture. I am Dr. Saad Ahmed, your facilitator for this course. To make this course interesting, useful, and to provide the best and up-to-date knowledge related to this course to all of you, we have a very highly qualified and professional team which includes Mr. Saeed Ahmed, Mr. Ilyas Yunus Ihsani, and Ms. Ghazala Shafi. All of us will make sure that you get the best possible environment and resources for learning. For this course, we will be using the book by William Starling named Computer Architecture and Organization. You can get the 8th edition or the 9th edition of this book. The PDF of this book is also available on LMS. The slides which we are going to use during this course are also available on your portal LMS Blackboard, and you can download it from there. And as I said earlier, the book PDF is also available there, so you can get it from there. Okay. A computer is a complex system. Generally, computers contains millions of electronic components, and the key to recognize the hierarchical nature of a complex system includes the computer. A hierarchical system is a set of interrelated subsystems, each of the latter in turn hierarchical structure until we reach some lowest level of a subsystem. The hierarchical nature of complex systems is essential to both their design and their descriptions. In this way, the designer only needs to deal with a particular level of a system at a time and don't worry about the other parts of it. So at each level, the system consists of a set of components and their interrelationships. This behavior at each level depends only on a simplified, abstracted characterization of a system at the next lower level. So the designer only is concerned with the structure and functions. So today we are going to try and understand the basics, terminologies used, understanding of architecture and organization of a computer system, and the basic concepts by using first understanding the structures and functions. And then we'll try to complete the part where the function of each component in a computer is discussed. So let's start with the definition of structure. The way in which the components are interrelated is known as structure. And if you want to define the function, the operation of each individual component as a part of the structure is called function. So if you look closely, the structure, as I said, is the way in which the components are interrelated, and the functions are the operations of an individual component as a part of a structure. So you need to understand and clearly define the differences between these two, the structure and the function. Let's move on. So both the structure and functioning of a computer are basically very simple. If you look at this diagram, you can see that there are basically 4 functions that a computer can perform, and these are the data processing, the data storage, the data movement, and the control. Okay, so one by one we'll just go through this. What we can see on the screen, that we have a data processing facility, the data storage facility, data movement apparatus, and the control mechanism. These are the 4 parts which comprises of the system. And if you just go through them. The basic function of each unit here is that the computer needs to process data. The data may take a wide variety of forms and ranges and may require different processing techniques. However, there are few fundamental methods which are used for data processing. It is also very important for computer to store data. Even if the computer is processing data on the fly, the computer must temporarily store at least those pieces of data that are being used at a given moment. At least for a short term, you need to store data. So it's a very important part, and definitely after storing the data, some point in the time you may need to retrieve that data or may require to update data. That is also important. Next, the data movement apparatus. As we know, the computer must be able to move data between itself and its outside world. The operating environment of computer consists of devices that serve as either the source or the destination of the data, which you know as input and output devices, the peripherals. When the data is received or delivered to a device that is directly connected to the computer, the process is known as input-output. And the device is referred to as I told earlier, the peripherals. When data are moved over longer distances to and from a remote device, this data movement is known as data communication. And the last is the control mechanism, and it comprises of three functions. This control mechanism is exercised by the individuals who provide the computer with instructions. Inside of the computer, a control unit manages the computer's resources and produce performance of its functional parts in response to those instructions. Okay, this is the general level. There are a number of possible operations that can be performed by a computer, and that is why computers are basically used as or known as generalized machines, because they can perform different kind of functions. They can be used to process scientific data. They can be used to play games also. So you know. Okay, so if you look at the screen, you can see a simplified representation of a computer system, and in that you can see that computer interacts in some fashion with its external environment, and all of its linkages to the external environment can be classified as peripherals. You can see here all the peripherals are here, and if you look at the other side, we have communication lines on the right side, which makes connection with the environment. So we have some basic parts here. If you go further inside this circle, if you can see that we have a storage and a processing unit. So there is a central processing unit which is used to control the operations of a computer and perform its data processing functions. It is referred to as microprocessor. Next, for storage, we have main memory like RAM, for storing data. We also have data movement apparatus, the communication lines, the I/O lines, which are used to move data between computer and its external environment. Then we have some interconnections, some mechanism that provides for communication between the CPU, the main memory, and the I/O, and they are known as system buses, which consists of multiple wires which are connected to each component. We'll discuss about it in detail later on. If you look at this functional view of the computer system, again you can see on the top there is an input and output which is coming from an operating environment, and we can also say that it may be the source or destination of data, and the simplest form could be a keyboard which is inputting data to the system, and can be a display, a monitor, which is showing you the results as you can see right now on your screens. So these two, let's go into detail and see how it works. Okay, let's look at the first operation, the data movement, in which you can see the data is coming from an input device, and following this path it is being controlled by the control unit and is going to some other output device, maybe a printer or a display. Second operation is a storage operation, and you can see the data again coming from an input device is going to the storage, that can be RAM or that can be a mass storage media, and you can see that control unit is involved in that also. Okay, third operation is processing from or to a storage. That means that you are picking some data maybe from a hard disk and processing it and then storing the results back on the hard disk. So the data is picked from the storage device, processed by the microprocessor, the ALU, and then it is stored back to the storage device, and again you can see the control unit is involved in this function, this process also. The other function or the operation can be processing from storage to I/O. I/O means the input output devices that are external to the computer system, that is present in the environment, so or a remote computer. So what is being done is that you can either get the data maybe from using modem or any broadband connection or Ethernet connection. You can get the data, it is processed and stored in your storage, local storage device, or if you can pick the data from your storage, process it and send it to any external device. So these are the basic operations. So here we can see we have a computer, and it is connected to its environment through different peripherals and also by using communication lines. If you go inside of the computer, you can see it has some functions. So inside of the computer we have this central processing unit, also known as the microprocessor. Then second important thing is the main memory. Then we have input output, and also some mechanism that provides for communication among these all units, that is the control unit, ALU, registers which are present inside this microprocessor, and some other things. Okay, so we have computer, and you have seen that inside of it the main components are the CPU, memory, system buses, and I/O devices. If you look inside the CPU, that is the microprocessor, you can see here that it contains registers. There can be general purpose registers as well as the specialized registers. We are going to discuss them later. Then we have a ALU, the arithmetic logic unit, the internal CPU interconnections, and a control unit. So you know by now that microprocessor or the processor central processing unit does carry the control unit, and it is sometimes also known as this microprocessor as the brain of the computer because it controls everything and process everything. Okay, we have this CPU, the ALU, the internal buses, the registers, but if you go inside this control unit, you can see that this control unit, which is basically controlling everything inside the computer, and you know that it's a very faultless machine, is a very accurate one. So what it does have inside it is a sequencing, a control register and decoders, and some control memory. These are some units present inside the control unit, and we are going to discuss them in detail in the coming weeks. So after this, some basics and some familiarity with the terminologies, we are going to discuss on a question, and that is, why is CPU termed as the central processing unit? So let's see one by one. And when you are doing an operation that is from memory to memory, the data is picked from the memory through a memory controller. Processing may be performed, processing is performed, and the control unit is involved in it. Then using the memory controller, the data can be sent back or stored on the memory. So this is the operation from memory to memory. If you look at some other operation like memory to IO means input output devices. So the data picked from the memory using the memory controller, processing again is performed, IO controllers involved, and the data sent to or received from an IO device. Another operation can be IO to memory, that is could be a keyboard in case of input, and could be a printer or a display in case of output. I'm using a very simple examples here of the peripherals. So IO, controllers involved again, processing is involved again, and using the memory controller, the data can be sent or stored on the memory unit. And if you talk about IO to all operations, that is that data is received from some input device and outputted to or sent to some output device. That can also happen using a controller, a processing unit, a control IO controller, and finally the data is sent to the output device. So if you look at very closely, you can see that for the first operation, processor is involved. For the second operation, processor is involved. Third operation, processing is involved, and the fourth operation, the processing is involved. So we can say that in every kind of operations, the central processing unit is involved in that. That is why it's known as or termed as central processing unit. So these are some basics. I hope you have understood the basic terminologies and basic concepts, and we'll continue in the next session some advanced topics. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Allah Hafiz.